Students, today we are discussing why democracy. It is the title of chapter 5 in Robert Dahl's book on democracy. In the last chapter, chapter 4, Robert Dahl discussed what is democracy, the meanings of democracy, and the criteria of democracy. In this chapter, Robert Dahl discusses the advantages of democracy. So, Robert Dahl starts the discussion with a question. He says, why should we choose to support democracy? Why should we choose to support democracy? Specifically, why is democracy the best way to run the whole country? Why is democracy the best way to run a whole country? Remember, a country's government is very unique. A country's government is very unique. It has an amazing power to make everyone follow its rules. It can force people to follow its rule, its laws. It can coerce people. The government can use force, the government can use threats, and it can even use violence to get people to obey, to make people to obey the laws, to obey the government. So, are there any better ways to govern a country? Are there any better ways, better methods, better forms of government to run a country better than democracy? Until very recently, almost everyone on earth had to live under undemocratic rulers. So, until recent past, democracy was very rare. So, most of countries were ruled by non-democratic governments. Non-democratic governments means kings, monarchs, dictators, okay, authoritarian governments. These rulers often tried to make their system sound fair. So, most of the times, the non-democratic system of government, it is not fair. Most of the times, but the non-democratic governments, they wish that people think that their rule is fair, that their rule is fair. They used a very old excuse. The non-democratic governments used a very old excuse. What was the excuse? Older people are simply not smart enough to run the government. It was their excuse that most people, common people, they are not capable of ruling. They cannot run a government. They said that citizens would be better off if they just let wiser people rule. So it was their excuse, their argument, that if people let the wiser people who are well educated, well informed, if they let them to rule, it will be good for the common citizens who are not well educated, who are not well informed. It was their excuse. This wise group, wise in inverted commas, this wise group was often a small handful of people, or sometimes just one leader sometimes. But good arguments were not enough to keep control. So these were the arguments, but people were not convinced that the rule is fair and only this person or this group should rule. People were not convinced. When arguments failed, people started using force to make the governments started using force to make people obey. Most citizens never actually agreed to be ruled by these self-appointed leaders. So, non-elected leaders, they are self-appointed. The non-democratic leaders. And democratic leaders, who appoints the democratic leaders? They are appointed by the voters. Who appoints the democratic leaders? The voters, the citizens. They appoint them by their vote. They were simply forced to follow the rules. So people under the non-democratic governments, they were simply forced to follow the rules of the government. Even today, this old way of thinking and this old way of ruling is still around. Do you know there are many countries still where there's no democracy? For example, and any other? Yes, yes, there are many other countries where there's no democracy. Okay. Yes. Yes, Pakistan. It's a good point. Pakistan, she said there's no democracy. And do you agree with her? Pakistan, yeah, let me tell you. Democracies are of two types. I might have told you before. What are the two types of democracy? Okay, it is one classification. Direct and representative. It is one classification. There is another classification. According to that classification, democracy is again of two types: consolidated democracy, repeat, consolidated democracy, and democracy. Transitionary, transition, which is in transition, which is changing. The consolidated means which has become settled, consolidated. It has become solid. Okay, the democracies which are in transition, they are not solid democracies. They are yet weak, very weak. Okay, so how do we differentiate? How do we make difference between consolidated democracies and transitionary democracies? Scholars, experts of democracy, they collected data from all over the world, and they came to know, they found that the democracies where elections were held 6 times consecutively. Consecutively means without break. Without break. The democratic countries where elections have been held for 6 times consecutively and the government has changed peacefully 6 times consecutively, none of those democracies has reverted back to authoritarianism. None of those countries has, repeat, none of those countries has reverted back to authoritarianism. So the chances are that they will continue to be democracies. But there are some countries where elections were held for 5 times, elections were held for 5 times, but even then, some of them reverted back to democracy. Democracy came to an end. Okay? So it means, at least so far, in modern times, in modern age, in modern democracies, at least 6 times you need 6 consecutive elections to become a consolidated democracy. So others are transitionary democracies. They sometimes move forward toward democracy, sometimes they do go back, they revert to authoritarianism. Okay? They are in transition. So Pakistan, how many times maximum, how many times elections have been held consecutively in Pakistan? Do you know? Yes. First elections were held in 1971 and 1970. 1970. And Bhutto became the president and the prime minister. Then his Ziaul Haq came and democracy came to an end. After Ziaul Haq, again elections were held in 1988, then in 1990, then in 1993, then in 1997, four times, then came Musharraf. Democracy again came to an end. Democracy reverted back to authoritarianism. Musharraf went in 2008. And after Musharraf, first elections were held when? 2013. Those elections were held under Musharraf. 2008 elections were held and under Musharraf. So I don't count them. I don't count them. Okay? So even if you count the 2008 elections, 1, 2008, 2, 2013, then 2018, 3, then 2024, 4. So maximum 4 times elections have been held in Pakistan consecutively. Getting the point? So yet we need 2 more elections consecutively. Then there are chances that Pakistan becomes a consolidated democracy. Then almost there will be no chances of non-democratic government. Okay, so there is something, there is a good news for Democrats in Pakistan in this. Are you getting it? So yes, your point is right. Pakistan is not counted as a democratic country. It is a transitional democracy. So even today, this old way of thinking and ruling is still around. The big fight is still going on. What is the big fight? What is the big fight? The big fight is between democracy and authoritarianism. It is between democracy and authoritarianism, Democrats and Democrats, anti-democrats. Okay? So who should govern? So this is the big question. Who should govern? The one, the few, or the many? Words about words. Robert Dahl says, when I use the word democracy here, I mean real life governments. I mean talking about a perfect government. I'm not talking about a dream version of government. So governments are never perfect. Robert Dahl says governments are never perfect. These real democracies meet most of the requirements, but not every single one. The democratic governments meet most of the democratic requirements, but they do not meet every single democratic requirement. Somehow, somewhere they are lacking. Somehow, somewhere they are lacking. The democratic governments, even they are lacking. Sometimes I also say popular government. Robert Dahl uses this term, popular government. This is a broader term that covers more types of ruling systems. More types of ruling systems. It includes the modern democratic countries we have today. It also includes older systems that were democratic in many ways. The only problem with those older systems was that many adults were not allowed to vote or take part in politics. We have already discussed at this point. In older democracies, there was no universal franchise. Some people had the right to vote, to take part in politics, and some others, they did not have the right. We see so much history of different kinds of rule. But why should we still think democracy is best? There are many types of government, there are many types of rule. Why should we still think democracy is the best? Robert Dahl says, I will count the reasons why we should choose it. Robert Dahl says, I will count the reasons. Why should we choose it? When we compare democracy to any other system, we could actually build, it has at least 10 advantages. When we compare democracy to any other system, democracy has at least 10 advantages. Number one, democracy helps to prevent government by cruel and vicious autocrats. Cruel and vicious autocrats. Let me explain this. Robert Dahl says the biggest problem in all of politics is trying to avoid rule by an autocrat. You might ask, what is an autocrat? Who is an autocrat? An autocrat is a cruel leader. You know cruel? You understand cruel? Cruelty. What is the Urdu word name meaning of cruelty? Anybody knows? Cruelty, cruel. Zalim. Cruel means zalim, cruelty, zulm. Cruelty means zulm. An autocrat is a cruel leader with total power. A cruel leader with total power. Throughout all of history, this has been a huge issue. Even today, some leaders are driven by things like massive ego, megalomania, massive ego. You know ego? What is ego? Huh? Ego. You don't know ego? E-G-O, ego. Ana. In Urdu, it is called ana. Akkad. Ego. So, some leaders are driven by things. Some leaders are driven by things like massive ego. Some people have very strong ego. Okay? They are very arrogant. Megalomania. Strong ego, massive ego means megalomania. Others are scared and suspicious of everyone. So some other leaders, they don't trust anyone. They are suspicious. This is called paranoia. Paranoia. So some autocrat leaders have the problem of megalomania. Some other autocrat leaders have the problem of paranoia. Some leaders just care about their own money. They are selfish. Some other leaders, autocrats, some other autocrats just care about their own money and power. So they are selfish. Other leaders are led by very strong, sometimes dangerous beliefs. Some of the autocrats, they have very dangerous beliefs. These leaders, dangerous beliefs, it's coming. For example, Hitler, he believed there's certain communities, they should not be allowed to live. So they should be killed. All of those communities should be killed. And he started killing them. So these are the dangerous beliefs. So these leaders use the country's power to get what they want. To get what they want. What is the country's power? Force and violence. The country has force, police, army, and other law enforcement agencies. So, yes, so there are other law enforcement agencies. They are the force of the government. They are the force of the state. So they can use violence. The terrible cost of this kind of absolute rule is huge. The cost of this rule is absolute rule. The cost of autocrat rule is huge. So autocracy causes as much suffering as widespread disease, widespread hunger, and war. Joseph Stalin. You know Joseph Stalin? Who was Joseph Stalin? He was a leader of the Soviet Union, communist leader. He was a communist leader of the Soviet Union. So Joseph Stalin ruled the Soviet Union from 1929 to 1953. He jailed millions of people because he was terribly paranoid. Paranoia. We have just discussed paranoia. Hmm? Paranoia means that all people are planning against me. It is paranoia. So the paranoid people don't trust anyone. Joseph Stalin feared that everyone was plotting against him. He believed all Soviet people, they were plotting against his government. About 20 million people died under his rule. How many? 20 million. How many crores? How many crores it comes? 2 crores. No. 2. 2 crore. 10 million is 1 crore. That is famine. That is famine. Execution. That is famine. That is famine. Execution when someone is killed by the state. If someone is killed by the state, by the court, under court's order, it is called execution. It is called execution. Now you can tell me its Urdu name. Eh? Phansi. Executions. Executions, phansiyan in Urdu. So they died from executions, they died from forced labor camps, and they died from a severe famine. Famine means when there's no food. When there's no enough food, it is called famine. The famine happened because Stalin made farmers work on state-run farms. State-run farms. He changed the whole economic structure. He took over the lands. He took over from the farmers, and all the property became the state property. So people had no property. The farmers had did not have their own land. So this way, there was a huge problem. Adolf Hitler. You know Hitler? Yes, Hitler is well known. He is very famous in here in Pakistan. Hitler led Nazi Germany from 1933 to 1945. Hitler killed countless opponents. Hitler killed countless opponents. Poles. Who are Poles? Pole, a citizen of Poland. A citizen of Poland. She is not feeling well? You go with her. You go. One of you. Take care of her. Huh? Oh, okay, fine. So Hitler killed countless opponents. He killed Poles, countless Poles, people who lived in Poland, they are Poles, and other groups. He wanted to wipe out completely. And you might have heard, Hitler wanted to kill all the Jews. Do you know this? Hitler was an enemy of Jews. He wanted to kill all the Jews. He wanted to kill all the Jews. Pol Pot ruled Cambodia with his group, the Khmer Rouge. Who was Pol Pot? Pol Pot was a leader. In which country? In which country? Cambodia. And what was his party's name? Khmer Rouge. It was his party. So this party ruled Cambodia from 1975 to 1979. So Pol Pot and his party, Khmer Rouge, killed 1/4 of the entire Cambodian population. What percent it becomes? 25%. This party in 4 years killed 25% of the Cambodians. Just imagine, autocratic rule. It is called autocratic rule, non-democratic rule. This was a huge self-inflicted tragedy. There are some natural tragedies, okay? What are the natural tragedies, you know? Can anybody tell the natural tragedies? Floods, earthquakes. These are the natural tragedies. Tornadoes, tsunami. These are the natural tragedies. But some are of the tragedies are man-made. Man-made. They are called self-inflicted. Self-inflicted tragedies, which men make themselves. So the tragedy in Cambodia, where 25% of the population was killed by the government, it was a man-made tragedy. It was not a natural tragedy, self-inflicted. Pol Pot was extremely scared of educated people. Pol Pot was extremely scared. He was afraid of. He did not like educated people. You know, in this modern Afghanistan today, the Afghan government, they do not like women to get education. But Pol Pot, he did not like even men, with educated men. No educated people he liked. Almost all educated people were killed in Cambodia under his rule. You could be executed, any one of you, if you are a Cambodian, you could be killed just for wearing glasses. Just for wearing glasses, you could be killed. Or having hands that were not rough from working. If your hands were very soft and they look like if you are from rich family, you could be killed. He liked only workers, laborers. They work hard, and because they work hard, their hands become rough. Hands of workers and laborers, they become rough due to work. So if your hands were not rough, it meant you are not hardworking person, so you could be killed by the government. So it is autocratic rule, non-democratic rule. You must be honest. We must be honest. Robert Dahl says, okay, it's fine. It's true that autocratic governments, non-democratic governments, they do injustices. They do injustices. They do cruel things. But at the same time, we need to be honest about democratic rule. He wants to say that democratic rule is not perfect. It also has some problems. But its problems are lesser. Its problems are less than non-democratic rule. This is the whole point. Like all governments, democratic governments have sometimes been cruel or unfair. This usually happens toward people outside their country. We are talking about people like foreigners or people in colonies. Democratic countries have behaved no worse. Democratic countries have behaved no worse than non-democratic ones toward outsiders, and often better. Often democratic countries have treated the people and foreigners better than non-democratic governments. In some places, the colonial power actually helped create democratic ideals, democratic institutions. You know, in the subcontinent, when was, under which government the first political party was established? First political party in the subcontinent, in the entire history, when was it established? Congress, Indian National Congress. It was established under the colonial rule. It was established under the colonial rule, and first elections were held under the colonial rule. First assemblies were formed under the colonial rule. So sometimes, in some ways, colonial powers, they did very cruel things as well, but at the same time, they also they also introduced democratic norms, democratic institutions. Still, we should not excuse the unfair things democratic countries have done to outsiders. So we should not excuse. If a democratic government does the wrong thing, we should not excuse. When they do this, they go against a basic moral idea. This is the same moral idea that helps us say why all citizens should be equal. The only way to fix this problem might be a universal code of human rights for the whole world. And now we have a universal declaration of human rights. Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So you remind me, I will share it on the group, and after the midterm exam, we will study this. We will study this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It is part of your course. These rights would have to be strongly enforced everywhere. This is a huge problem. A much bigger challenge for democracy is the unfair things it does to some people inside the country. Sometimes democratic governments have done wrong things to foreigners, and sometimes the democratic governments have done wrong things to their own citizens within the country. These are people who must obey the laws, but they are not allowed to help make those laws. They are ruled by the government, but they cannot rule themselves. Luckily, the answer to this is clear, even if it's hard to do. The solution is to give democratic rights to all of these groups that are left out. So, if a group in a country does not have the right to vote, it means it is being ruled, but it is not part of the ruling elite. It is not part of the government. This solution was actually used a lot in the 1800s and early 1900s. The communities which did not have the right to vote, they got the right to vote. During that time, the rules about who could vote were removed. Eventually, universal adult suffrage. Suffrage means what? Do you need know what is suffrage? Suffrage means right to vote. Suffrage means right to vote. Right to vote. It is called suffrage. It is also called franchise. 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 So franchise and suffrage, they mean the right to vote. So universal adult suffrage means all adults can vote. Who are adults? Yes, who are not children. Who are not children, they are adults. You might ask, can a democratic government still hurt a small group of citizens? Can a democratic government still hurt a small group of citizens? These citizens have the right to vote, but they are simply outvoted by the bigger group, the majority. So, sometimes some community may not have the right to vote, and it is oppressed. It has to obey the rules which it does not it cannot take part in making them. Sometimes there are communities which have the right to vote, but still they suffer injustices. They suffer injustices. They suffer injustices. Why? Because they are minority. Why? Because they are minority. So, majority wins. Majority wins. Majority wins in democracies. Who wins? Majority wins, and majority makes the government, and majority makes the rules. Majority makes the laws. So it is called democratic rule is majority rule. So sometimes minority has to suffer. Under some democratic governments, minority, although it votes, it has the right to vote, but it suffers at the hand of the majority. It is another problem of democracy. Isn't this exactly what people mean by the tyranny of the majority? It is called the tyranny of the, repeat, it is called the tyranny of the majority. Almost every single law or government action causes some people some harm. Whenever a law is made, some people are happy on it and some people are not happy on it. For example, there are servant children at homes, child servants in Pakistan, in our country. Some families have child servants, and many times they abuse them. They abuse them. They violate their rights. They beat them sometimes, and they don't. Sometimes they don't give them proper food, enough food. Sometimes they stay hungry, so their rights are violated. Servant children. So just imagine that the government makes a law to protect the rights of those servant children. The children will be happy? Children, no, the children will be happy. The children who will get the rights, they will be happy. The children who will get the rights, they will be happy. No? Huh? Sorry? No. You try to understand. Try to understand. The servant children will be happy if they get the rights, if they get the protection of the state. But certain people will not be happy. Who will not be happy on this law? Those who violate their rights. Those who violate their rights. Those who beat them. They will not be happy. Similarly, if a law is made that a teacher cannot beat these children at school, the children will be happy at school. But the teacher who have the habit to beat, will they be happy? No, the teacher who has a habit to beat, they will not be happy on this law. They will not like this law. So the point is, Robert Dahl is telling us, whenever a law is made, some people feel good about it and some people don't feel good about it. So whenever government does something, some people become unhappy. Whenever government does something, some people become unhappy. For example, these electro buses, majority is happy, students are happy, ladies are happy, and others travelers are happy. But there is one community who is not happy. Do you know? Yes. So whenever a law is made, whenever a policy is made and implemented, whatever the government does, it will have some issues. It will cause some problem for some community. Sometimes the problem is legitimate and sometimes the problem is not legitimate. So this is true no matter who makes the law. So even if an angel is ruling, okay, even if an angel becomes the prime minister or the president, some people will not be happy with him or her. It happens if the law is passed by a democratic majority. It happens if the law is passed by a democratic majority. It happens if the law is passed by a rich small group, oligarchic minority, oligarchy. It even happens if the law is passed by a kind dictator, benign dictator. The real point is not whether a government can make laws that never hurt anyone. No government in history, not even a democratic one, can promise that. No government can promise that All laws will make all people happy. Democracies are much, much less cruel. So, democracies are much, much less cruel than non democratic countries. But just because of that, we cannot relax and think everything is great. We should not be complacent. We can't say it's okay to commit a small injustice just because of others commit bigger ones. So we should not tolerate. Even if a democratic government does something wrong, we should not tolerate. Even when a democratic country follows all the right rules, if it acts unfairly, it is still an injustice. An injustice is an injustice whether it is done by a democratic ruler or an undemocratic ruler. Just having power does not automatically make the majority right. Majority might does not automatically make the majority right. The second advantage of democracy. Democracy guarantees its citizens a number of fundamental rights that non democratic systems do not and cannot grant. Democracy is much more than just a process of ruling. Democracy is much more than a process of ruling. Rights are a necessary part of how democratic governments work. So, if people have rights, then it may be a democracy. It can be a democracy. But if people don't have rights, can it be a democracy? No. So, it means democracy and rights, they are strongly linked. They are strongly linked. Because of this, democracy is actually a system of rights. Democracy is actually a system of rights. So there are student rights, there are women rights, there are gender rights, there are children rights, there are labor rights, okay, workers' rights, like that. Think about the basic rules of democracy. It is obvious that citizens need certain rights to meet these rules. We have studied 5 criteria in the last chapter, 5 rules of democracy. So Robert Dahl is telling if these citizens have rights, then they can fulfill that 5 criteria. But if the citizens don't have rights, can they fulfill that criteria? No, they cannot. I don't know who's calling. Hello? Hold on. Let me just complete the second point, then we close. So, which was the slide? Slide number 97. Okay. So, Robert Dahl says, think about the basic rules of democracy. It is obvious that citizens need certain rights to meet these rules. Take the rule of effective participation. This means people must have a right to participate. They need a right to share their views on political matters. They need to hear what other people are saying. And they must be able to discuss things with fellow citizens. Now, think about the rule of voting equality. This means citizens must have the right to vote. Their votes must also be counted in a fair way, equal. The other rules of democracy work the same way. Citizens need a right to look at different options, understanding, enlightened understanding. They need a right to help decide what topics the government should work on. If any political system actually does all those things, it automatically becomes a democracy. This is more than just a small technical detail. If those rights are not given to the people, the system is not truly democratic. If the people don't have those rights, the system is not democratic. This is true no matter what the leaders say. Any claim to democracy without these rights is just a facade. Facade means it's a fake thing. It is simply a fake front for a non democratic government. Imagine that in a non democratic country, citizens somehow gain all the rights needed for democracy. This means those rights become a real practical reality. If that happens, the country has officially become a democracy, even if its government is not elected. This change happened many times during the second half of the 1900s, in other words, 20th century. Rights like free speech are needed for democracy to exist. It is necessary condition, not just in words but in the real world. Several conditions make democracy lost. Democracy lasts due to several conditions, under several conditions. One of these conditions is having widespread democratic beliefs. Having widespread democratic beliefs. This belief must be common among citizens and leaders. This includes a belief in all the rights and opportunities democracy must provide. Fortunately, the need for these key rights is not a huge secret. When Thomas Jefferson was elected president in 1800, he quickly ended the bad Alien and Sedition Acts. These acts, put in place by John Adams, would have crushed free political speech. So, freedom of speech, it is a basic right, basic democratic right. Jefferson did this because of his own beliefs, but also because most ordinary citizens agreed with him. When many citizens stop understanding that democracy needs these basic rights, the democracy is in danger. When majority thinks rights are not important, the democracy is in danger. If they stop supporting the groups that protect those rights, like courts, the country is at risk. Fortunately, this danger is a little smaller because of the third big benefit of democratic systems. So here we close. Then in the next class, after your midterm exam, we will study democracy, the third advantage, the remaining advantages of democracy, which Robert Dahl has discussed.